So in this video, we're going to talk about um, masculine energy. And I want to start out by giving a shout out to my dad. Hi, Dad. We don't have the closest relationship, and we're not father and daughter that talk every day or that we're in each other's lives constantly. But that's okay because father and daughter relationships, they look differently depending on what lesson needs to be learned by both parties, by both the daughter and the father. The lesson that I needed to learn required for my father to not be in my life and for him to show up right when I needed him. And so I want to talk about a situation, and probably this video is going to be a lot of situations that have happened, a lot of things that the men in my life have done, and how I responded, and how I'm reflecting on it now and realizing that that's what masculine energy really is. So when I when I was in an abusive relationship and I left, my father showed up out of the blue. And when we had a conversation, probably because my mom called him and told him what happened, and told him, some foolishness, not foolishness, but told him, knowing her, she probably told him, "Why aren't you in Rashida's life? Because she needs you. This and that happened to her." Because that's my mom, over dramatic. But so he shows up and he's like, we have a conversation, and he tells me to read The Art of Seduction, and we go through like this whole conversation about and understanding like the nature of men, and he shared with me that I should be going after men who are like geeks and nerds, and like men that just they seem boring. And I always knew that, like, that was something he taught me when I was younger, and my mom also taught me that. So that's something that I've always known. I've always dated guys. I've never been attracted to the bad boy. The guy that actually abused me, I wouldn't consider him to be a bad boy. He was a player, but he wasn't a bad boy. Like, I don't know. Maybe, yeah. So my dad was basically like, it seems like you're like your mom and you are attracted to the bad boys and whatever. No, I'm attracted to guys that have confidence. And like I mentioned in other videos, we put up with the other stuff because it's the confidence that we're really after. I don't want, while a man who is a nerd and a geek will provide for me, he's not gonna have the pizzazz, like the extra little umph that I'm attracted to, and it is what it is. And so my dad told me to read Art of Seduction, and I started reading it, and like, it just, I get why he told me to read it. And it's not that like I didn't, because my dad told me to read it, so of course I'm gonna pick it up at least. But I don't think he realized that it wasn't going to connect with me, or it wasn't gonna, like, the like, basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is the better approach would have been to just say, "Hey, Rashida, like, you need to have more discernment when you're dealing with guys, and you need to understand that, like, they're going to play certain games with you. Just be cut and dry, straight to the point. Like, why tiptoe around the bush? I don't have time to be deciphering messages." And that's what, like, the Art of Seduction is. Like, there are some gems in there, just like with the 48 laws of power. There are gems in there, especially for women, but we are not drawn to that kind of material, and it doesn't make sense to us, and it doesn't resonate with us because of the way that we perceive things. It seems like it's a manipulation, whereas the feminine energy is more free flowing. It's more like, just everything's love kind of thing. And that's not the reality of the world. Obviously, we're all aware of that. But as women, how do we apply our everything is love mentality? Our we just want to nurture everybody, and our optimistic views of the world with how do we balance optimism and pessimism, like and reality, like this is what we want the world to be, but obviously we can't operate in that space fully. We have to protect ourselves, and that's what the masculine energy comes in to do. But how do we like balance all of that and understand it? And so he was trying to protect me by having me read that book so that I can understand certain things a little bit more. But he could have just like gone straight to the point. Like he didn't have to treat me like a child. Like I understand that men play games. I understand that men are not gonna have the same intentions for you that you have for them. Just be like, Rashida, have a little bit more discernment. Or I know that you have discernment. Shit happens. I'm sorry that that happened to you, but what was the lesson in it? You know, so another example of like how men deal with things a little bit differently is I got in a fight with not like a physical fight, but like argument with my mom one time, and we were in the car riding somewhere, and she started with like her stuff that she starts with, and she was trying to control me and get me to do something that I didn't want to do. So like when the car was stopped, I jumped out of the car because that's just how I just I only have the time for certain things, right? So I jumped out of the car, and she called my brother. My brother came to get me. And at this point, like I'm just a wreck. Like I was just upset. I was just like, you know, when it just gets to that point where you can't do anything else but cry, like it just got to that point. Like it was just too much. And so I jump in the car with him, and his girlfriend and my niece were in the car. And like I'm crying. And he was like, "You okay?" Like when I got in the car, he was like, "You okay?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like I kind of said, "Yeah." I don't know if he heard me. I didn't really say it out loud. And then I just put my head down, and I'm like crying my eyes out. And he turns up the stereo really loud, and he just keeps driving. Like he starts playing music, and he just keeps driving. And I was grateful for that. Like I was grateful for that. His girlfriend later like told him, you know, you should have, you know, consoled her, you should have gave her a hug, you should have whatever. But my brother knows me. Like we were raised in the same house. Like emotions are emotions. Like, you know, he asked me if I was okay. Okay, you okay? All right, well, let's move on. And that's how he looked at it. And so that's why he started playing the music, and that's why I was grateful for it, because it's like I don't want to talk about what I'm feeling right now, because we've already talked. Like there's enough talking. Like there's no more talking to be had. Right now I just need to cry. And he did the perfect thing. And in his own way, that was him protecting me, protecting my space, protecting my just that was there's another way to say it. That was him protecting me. Because maybe if I had, you know, said what was really going on in the car, maybe he didn't want me to talk about our family business in the car in front of his girl or in front of Layla, my niece. Maybe, you know, he was protecting me and just doing what men do. That's what they do. Right now is not the time or the place to have this conversation. So we're gonna turn up the music, cry if you need to. We're gonna go home. Like that's just what needed to happen in that situation, and he did what needed to happen rather than focusing on the emotional stuff that women tend to do. Like that's why I say like being dramatic. Like a dramatic man or woman would have been like, "Oh my God, like what is wrong with you? Like what?" No, he just turned up the music, and I was grateful for that because I was able to cry and just fall apart without all the attention being on me. And he knew that that's not what he knew that's not what I needed. He knew exactly what I needed. He gave it to me. So it was another example. I remember years ago moving in with my I call him my boyfriend, the guy I was dating. I don't know. Moving in with a guy, right? And the first thing he did was go to Walmart and buy new locks. Like he changed the front door locks, but it wasn't like the turn knob. Like he changed it to two deadbolts because we were living in the hood. And so he changed the locks. He had bought like a thing to like protect because there was a bathroom window that led to the outside. It was like a little small window. And he bought something to barricade and block that. Like he just bought a whole bunch of stuff to kind of secure our apartment. And I didn't argue about him. I didn't argue with him about any of it. I just let him do what he was doing. Even though I didn't feel that it was necessary, because I just operate out of this space of like, God will protect me. I don't know. This like naive, everything is peace and love kind of like, I know that people break in, but I just was under, and I was really still young at the time, like 2021. I was still under this impression of like, bad things don't happen to me. Like, it just doesn't happen, because I had just been so lucky, so like protected up until then, that like I really didn't have to deal with people breaking in my house and like stuff like that. Um, and so he changed the locks and everything. But the one thing that I did mention to him that I felt like was too much was the barricade for the bathroom window. I was like, it's like literally this, like the window was literally this big. Like it was a very tiny window. And I'm like, who is gonna come? Like, who's coming through that window? Like, we didn't get an argument about it, but he was just like, okay, whatever. And he returned it. He never, like, he never secured that window. And so, everything happened between us, and he ended up moving out, and I stayed there, and I was living there by myself. I took over all the bills, and I was living there. And months go by, and somebody ends up breaking into my house. And guess where they entered through? The same bathroom window. They weren't able to get through the front because he had the deadbolts that he put there were still there. So the only way that they were able to get in was through that same bathroom window. And I guess they like paid a kid or something to climb through it and come open the front door. Because when I came home, the front door was still open because they weren't able to close it. Because again, remember, it didn't have the knob for them to pull it. So I guess somebody was the lookout. However it went down, I came and the door was wide open. And so they had somebody come and unlock it, however they did it. And then yeah, what they stole doesn't matter. What's another example? I dated this other guy before him, and he would get up every morning and check my car. And I kind of like, a part of me kind of felt like it was like controlling, and like, for selfish reasons, like, you're just doing that so I don't have to call you later if something happens with the car or whatever. But like looking at it now, that was just his way of taking care of me. Like, you don't have to check your own car, because now like I get my own oil changes and whatever. Like, I'm always checking the tires and making sure that everything is fine. But he used to do that for me, and I didn't appreciate it until I had to do it for myself. But during the time when he did it, I really did not appreciate. Like, I appreciated it, but it kind of led to like a situation. And so yeah, but looking back on it, like that was his way of taking care of me. That was his way of being like the man. That was his way of just providing and protecting. He would check my car every morning, make sure that the tires are good, make sure that, it's starting, everything's okay with it. And so yeah, how else have men? Another example would be more recently. I was with this guy, and we went to like some kind of social event, and I was feeling like the jealousy. Like everybody, he was like one of those like really attractive guys, and women wanted him. And so I could feel the jealousy or whatever. And so I didn't want to engage with them. So I had like an attitude. But he, in his own way, still protected me, still honored me, like still I'll give you an example. So like we were sitting there, and he ordered a salad, and he started feeding it to me, something that he never does. He never does. And I looked at it as like, because we were going through other issues, so I looked at it as like he was trying to impress the other women there, so that they would see him in a certain light and want him or whatever. But he was really trying to protect my honor, like show that like this is the woman that I respect, this is who I'm with, Like, this is what, you know, and it could have been either way, but that's just another example of how men show us respect and honor us without, in like their own way, and how we can misunderstand certain situations. So instead of me like looking at it as like, you know, he was just doing that to like impress the other women and make them think that he was a good guy, when, you know, this whole time he was like talking to me crazy behind the scene, and then all of a sudden you're feeding me, like literally dude was like feeding me in front of these girls, like and it felt good. Like at the time I you know, I didn't mind it. But again, I was already in a mood, and like we hadn't built that type of trust to where I looked at him as like a, like, you're my partner, like we're in this together kind of thing. I think if I had looked at it that way, then if we had taken the time to build that type of rapport and relationship with each other, then that situation, I would have seen it for what it really was. But I still think like during the moment, I could feel like the vibe. I could feel like, you know, he was there to like protect me. And then another way that he protected me was one girl that we met, she wanted to like, basically we did like a double date thing. And she and I went off together to do something. And he texted me and he was like, be careful what you talk to her about. She's jealous. And he was like, you know, guiding me on how to interact, because he knows me. Like he knows that I'm very open, and I can be naive in a way, like I'm just a very loving and caring person. And he could see like what type of energy she had, and he was just trying to protect me. But at the time I just saw it as controlling. Like, I know. I know that she, like, I know what I'm doing. So, like, I don't know. Like, I do know, but so I guess what I'm trying to get at with this is men just show that they care in a different kind of way than women do. And instead of us expecting them to show affection and caring in the ways that we do, we should just accept, like, just accept it, for just let him do his thing. Let him be paranoid when you guys go out, and looking all around, and you know, telling you not to go anywhere so he could scope out the scene. Like, don't get mad at him for that. And men, if women call you out for doing those kind of things, I hope now you'll have the tools to just be like, instead of taking it personally, or instead of like, you know, getting feeling shame or getting offensive or thinking that women don't like that, or that, you know, whatever it is that you think that make you stop being who you are, just understand that you got to stay on your square. That you're that way for a reason. And if she doesn't understand that, then you guys can have a conversation and you can try to help her to understand it by just saying, look, like, it's my job to protect you, and that's what I'm trying to do. And if she doesn't get that, like, if you say that, it's my job to protect you, that's why I'm paranoid, because I want to make sure that you're safe. And if she can't understand that, then you need to leave her alone, because she got other stuff going on that is none that you don't need to be involved in. Clearly, because I can't imagine any woman not understanding that. So yeah, just because a lot of times we emasculate men without realizing that's what we're doing. And because you guys don't, and I'm talking to the men, because the men don't understand how to have that open communication with us, or because they're just thinking that it should be understood. It's not understood, especially not in today's dynamics. There's all kind of stuff going on. Nothing is understood. Like, you have to put, like, you have to tell us. You have to blatantly be like, look, I don't know what you used to, but I'm a man, okay? I'm going to protect you. I'm going to make sure that you're safe. And if you want to see that as controlling, then maybe I'm not the one for you. If you want to, you know, come up with some other reason for why I do the things that I do, maybe I'm not the man for you. And yeah, it doesn't have to be this whole, just like in the other video where I was talking about feminine energy, like feminine energy is setting boundaries. That's what the lesson for the feminine is, boundary setting. And the lesson for the masculine is protection, is how to, how to navigate the world, how to balance your optimism, your optimistic view of the world, and the reality of the world. Because there's so many things that I've learned from men that protect me now. Like, for example, I bought I paid $2,000 and bought a scooter, and for a while that's how I was getting around. And the masculine energy in me told me, you need to lock this bike up. And I even bought a lock and I bought all the stuff that I needed for it. But the feminine energy in me was like, you don't need to lock, like, what are you locking up your bike for? You're protected. Like, who's gonna mess with your bike? Like, eventually I got too comfortable in the fact that, because like months went by and I was like, it's in the garage, it should be fine. And as soon as I let my guard down, somebody stole it. And so if I had a man in my life, because another aspect of that is feminine energy, because it's like water, it flows. So that's why I was in one position and I bought the lock, and then depending on how I felt, I either put it on or I didn't. Masculine energy is steady, it's straight. Every day he's going to put the lock on regardless of what the circumstances are. He doesn't care. I'm putting the lock on, period. Now I don't have to worry about it. And so it's not just about, because like, that's why I'm saying masculine energy, because it's not just for men, and it's not just like masculine energy isn't just about men. Women have that energy within them as well. And the more that I explore that energy, the more I'm able to appreciate men, the more I'm able to appreciate my dad and him telling me to read The Art of Seduction, which I still haven't read, and I'm not going to, Dad. I'm sorry, but not sorry. It's not giving. It's not giving. When you're ready to have an open, honest conversation with me about your feelings and the things that you've gone through as a man, then we can have that conversation, and that'll be 10 times more beneficial to me. That's what I need. And so when you're ready to do that, the door is always open. But until then, I just can't. I can't. So yeah, and that was the issue with the guy that he just like that's where it ended up getting, like with the guy that that fed me and all that kind of stuff, and like was protecting me from other women. Like that's where we kind of bumped heads. He was very like closed off. He didn't want to, he opened up to me, but not completely. Like he was afraid to share how he felt about me with me. And that's also because I really never shared how I felt about him with him. So as much as I was willing to open up, he was willing to open up. And so that's on both of us. But that's kind of where it goes. Like it kind of goes through stages. Like first you guys bump heads because you're not understanding each other's communication style, and then you heal that. And then you bump heads because one or the other is not willing to be vulnerable. So first you bump heads on the masculine energy, not being able to understand each other and communicate properly. And then you bump heads on the feminine with not being able to be vulnerable. And so I see that in my relationships with men. I see that in my relationship with my dad. Like I just said, the thing that is going to bring us closer together is him being able to share his personal experiences with me. And me being able to do the same without him judging me or him not wanting to hear certain things, or, I'm sure no dad wants to hear about his daughter's sexual escapades. and relationships with other men, but you got to get to a point where you realize that your daughter is not a little girl anymore. She's a grown adult, and the things that she needs now as a grown adult are going to be real life experiences because she's already gone through those things. There's nothing to protect her from anymore because she's already done it. It's already there. So the protect, like, you have to shift the protective mode from preventative to what would be the opposite of preventative? Really, preventative is still sharing because you didn't share your lessons, she had to go through it anyway and figure it out on her own. And now still, even after she's had to go through all of that and you guys realize that doesn't work, you still don't want to share anything. But it's fine. I get why that happens. And it's the same thing with my mom. That's going to be what's going to take the relationship to the next level. Being able to have honest, open, truthful conversations with each other about what is going on. And that takes time. That takes healing. That takes everything that it takes. And I'm here for it all. So yeah, I think that's all I want to say about the masculine. Yeah, so until next time, guys, be well.